They're going to shut every hospital's door because of their silly incompetence. They can't budget right, they can't allocate dollars right, they can't do their job right, and I am not going to protect poor performing employees at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
That right there is a chairman of the Veteran Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives, Congressman Jeff Miller, talking about the ongoing problems at the VA. He also sent a letter to President Obama that reads in part, quote, "I implore you to get involved and lead if this truly is a crisis threatening VA hospital operations, and the president should be sounding the alarm. Just as your words matter, so does your science." A real concern now about shutting down VA hospitals. And joining us now to talk a little bit more about this is Dr. Dan Benishek, Congressman from Michigan. And sir, it's great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me on, John. Appreciate it.
All right, so you were there yesterday in that hearing. Jeff Miller obviously fired up, but I'm sure you're pretty upset as well.
Hey, I mean, can you believe it? They say they're going to shut down every hospital and clinic in the country because they ran out of money. They didn't know they spent $2.6 billion more than they had. I mean, really? Do we have to listen to this repeatedly? I mean, you know, Mr. Miller's bill allows the secretary to remove problem employees. I mean, obviously there's some problems with the VA that really need to be fixed. I mean, it's unbelievable that this is happening. You know, Mr. Gibson, the assistant secretary, was in front of us 2 weeks ago. He never mentioned that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And now they're, you know, holding us ransom, you know, to come up with $3 billion to fund their mismanagement.
I hate to sound jaded, but I'm actually not surprised because this is exactly what you would expect from a giant government bureaucracy like the VA.
Well, it's been going on for years. Why is it taking so long to fix everything?
That's what I'd like to know. And frankly, we've been working on it since I've been here. I think we've made some progress. There's a lot more to go. Actually, as you've seen, there seems to be a new revelation every month about some incompetence at the VA. And you know, I got a piece of legislation myself that we're also working on, what I call the Demanding Accountability for Veterans Act, which would actually make the VA name the individual who's responsible for fixing a problem. And they don't do that right now. You know, they say, well, we're all working on it. And then you ask at the end of the month, well, what did you actually do? They don't know who was in charge of the project. So I think we need to start naming names in the VA and actually hold those individuals responsible.
Yeah, and, you know, again, when you kind of blame everybody, you're actually blaming no one in the process. And yesterday, now the House did pass that bill that would make it easier for the VA chief to fire employees. Obviously a step in the right direction. But, Dr. Dan, you say we need even more steps like this, like your bill.
Well, absolutely, because right now they hide behind this shield of anonymity. Well, who's actually in charge of that project? Well, it's more like a collaboration, you know, or nobody's actually in charge. Well, that could be the problem. You know, we need to name somebody who is actually responsible and whose job performance rating gets rated depending on their production. We don't have that now, and they keep hiding behind, well, it's a collaboration. So we got to put a stop to this. I mean, this is just another example of this latest crisis where they don't even know they spent $3 billion. You know, we got to solve this.
Well, let's talk about these new reports that just came out that veterans' disability claims mistakenly ended up in shredding bins in Los Angeles. There were supposedly 10 of these, and they're saying this is just a one-time mistake, but some people are questioning, really? Again? Well, I mean, what do you make of this, Doctor?
Frankly, it's difficult to believe a lot of the stuff that they tell you in committee. You know, we have these hearings, and then they all say everything's hunky-dory, we're working on solving the problem, and yet 6 months later, no progress has been made. I mean, I'll give you a really great example of, you know, if you call the VA hospital and you get the machine, and then if you're thinking of harming yourself, hang up and dial 1-800-674-5788. Why don't they just have a button to push, to connect to a hotline for mental health? They don't have that. And so I said, well, why don't you just fix that? Make it so you don't have to remember a number, write it down, and then call back. Why don't you just have a push one for help? Well, we're going to do that, but it's going to take us 6 months.
It's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing.
And that's the kind of stuff, that's as simple as that. If you call a VA hospital today, that's the answer you'll get. And then they tell you, well, no, it'll take us 6 months to solve that problem. Why?
Right. Well, you bring up a good point that we talk about accountability, but let's face it, we've done this. We've let go of people, we've hired new people, and the situation seems to remain unchanged. You know, you
As far as
mentioned.
I know, they've only let go 2 people in Denver, for example, for that $1 billion cost
Right.
over there. I mean,
Right.
Of course, Eric Shinseki too, and you know he's beginning to look more and more like a sacrificial lamb in this entire process. Yesterday, Doctor, we played a clip of President Obama talking about how this entire situation is unacceptable. And again, just like Chairman Miller says, his silence on this issue, he's obviously got more important things in his eyes to talk about, but his silence is very telling. Would you agree?
Yes, we need leadership in the VA.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. I mean, I had a hearing today, a roundtable today, where I met with a bunch of managers at the VA. They're all.
Unfortunately, Congressman, Dr. Dan, we got to cut it off here. We're out of time. We got a hard commercial break coming up here, but we'd love to get an update from you on your work on this in the very near future, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
All right, coming up, we'll be back with more Newsmax Now.